So we have a very special guest in the booth tonight, Al Coates, coming in from the Calgary Flames. I noticed you're wearing a beautiful Kimberley Dynamiter scarf. Welcome to Kimberley.
Well, I've been here. My wife's from Cranbrook, by the way.
Oh, really?
And I've had a home here, trying to spend as much time as I can here since 2000.
Excellent.
So I spent a lot of time here. I love it. Been here a lot too. Dynamiters.
Tell me a little bit about tonight's hockey game. What your thoughts are?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't see much of the first period because there's a big barbecue going on outside.
Right.
You know, for Cliff Boychuk and the charity. So I was out there with some pals of mine. Didn't see a lot of that. I watched the whole second period, and it's interesting when you shoot the puck and somehow or another the goalie's in the right place at the right time, and so that's kind of where Kimberley's at the moment. I am looking forward to a very exciting third period because when you give up a goal at the like they did at the end of the second period and give another team momentum, and I'm sure Stewie and the boys in the Dynamiter dressing room, they're talking about the very thing. And I got to say, you know, like when somebody puts their heart and soul into something like Cliff Boychuk has for this charity,
yep,
and it's involved in this game, they know that inside. So I'll be really interested to see how everybody responds in the third period.
And that goal that the Dynamiter scored was actually a really fortunate goal. They've had some really good opportunities, but that shot going high and wide hit the goaltender stick, dropped in the crease, and Palmer just tucked it in. It was a lucky goal.
It happens, you know, because I was sitting watching the second period and just saying, you know, like there's an old thing, like when I was involved in the game a lot more than I am now, like we used to center ice drive, you know, like, so the goalies are so good and so big.
Yep.
I don't care what level of hockey it is. They're athletic. They get special coaching that goalies 30 years ago didn't get.
Right.
They're really good. They're really good at every level. And the only way you're going to beat goalies at any level, relatively speaking, is getting traffic and movement.
Exactly.
So I think we're going to see a different Dynamiters team in the third period, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I thought the Dynamiters have pretty much dominated the game, but a couple of breakdowns in the defensive zone and maybe one bad goal, that third goal, I thought Brett Anderson might have had back.
But maybe, you know, like it happens, but it's a team game.
Exactly.
And we never blame the goalie. The goalie's got a job to do, and
breakdowns in the defensive
there's going to
zone,
be all
exactly.
those same games where he won the game for the team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's going to come back, and I'm sure he'll probably think on this game and said he probably should have done better. But like I say, everybody has a game that they'd like to forget. But if you learn from it, that's
I've
what
had
you
a
want to
few
do.
of those myself.
So Al, let's talk about the charity that you were talking about. I understand that you're heavily involved with Cliff Boychuk.
I'm not really heavily involved. I think the world of him, and I know him, and I know a lot of people that know him, and more importantly, respect him to the ultimate.
Yes.
And that's really what matters when somebody does what he does. And you know, last night in Calgary, I'll answer it another way. I had the good fortune of being at a function with General Hillier.
Okay.
Was speaking at a function about leadership. And so I translate that and all the messages that I got last night to here tonight. And so you get a guy like Cliff Boychuk in a community like Kimberley, and you talk about leadership and the things that people do, you know, to make your community better, to make this team better, to make people want to play here, get the right coaching staff, all those kinds of things,
right.
Type of thing. That's what leadership's all about. So I think when you look at those are unsung heroes in my mind in small communities. I love that because I think when you collect all those people together, and there's a lot of people like that in this country, and we have a great country, and we have a great sport. That's really what makes our sport what it is, and it makes what our country is.
As I understand it, tonight they're going to be auctioning off the green November sweaters, and you had a big part in that.
Well, a little bit. every once in a while I get to call in a little bit of a favor here and there. So Johnny Gaudreau's jersey is here from the Calgary Flames, a real NHL jersey signed by him. I was down at the Vegas game on Monday. Ryan McGill, who used to coach Kootenay Ice,
Right.
and I hired when I was in the Rangers system. He is a good friend, and he was kind enough to go talk to Marc-Andre Fleury and would just sign a goal stick and give it to Al so he can take it to Kimberly. And another pal with the Montreal Alouettes that sent me an autographed football. You know what? It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with Cliff and what's been done here, and by the organizers and Al Rice and the directors of the Kimberly Dynamiters and the community at large.
Yep.
Quite frankly, and I'm just really happy. I love coming here. I wish I could spend more time here than I do, and tonight is kind of a special night. I'm just happy to be in attendance, never mind anything else.
That's terrific. Well, let's talk a little bit about Al Coates, and you mentioned that you're not quite as involved with hockey as you have been. What is your position now are you with the Flames?
No, I'm not. So I was with the Flames. I was actually the first person hired by the Calgary Flames in 1980.
Back when they moved from Atlanta?
From Atlanta, but I came from Detroit, from the Red Wings.
Okay.
So I'd already been in the Red Wings. So I spent, not to get into it, but I spent 20 years in Calgary, started as the public relations director, and then evolved through my career type of thing into running both the Canadian Airlines Saddle Dome and the team for a year, and as general manager, vice president, whatever. Then went to the Rangers, then went to the Ducks. Fortunate enough to win another cup in Anaheim in 2007. We won the cup in Calgary in '89. We got beat by Montreal in '86. It was really interesting because all those guys have so much respect for each other now. The '86 Montreal Canadiens team and the '89 Calgary Flames team. And I remember, who was it? I think Mario Tremblay was at a function I was at. And somebody asked him, so what did you think about the Flames winning in '89? And he says, you know what? All honesty, we were better in '86 than they were better in '89. They deserved to win. I love the honesty, quite frankly,
Yep.
of the players on both sides. And so I just been personally, and then Rangers, Ducks, and win another one in 2007 Anaheim. This has been so fortunate, quite frankly, to be in the right place at the right time and work with some wonderful people. Somewhere along the line, I'd like to think that I made some tiny contribution into us winning cups, and more importantly, what I love is building organizations. I am a firm believer you don't win anything until you have a good organization behind that, and I don't care who the players are, who the manager is, who the coach is. If it starts at the top with great ownership, management, and kind of down the line, and all of a sudden, I know all my years in Calgary, everybody wanted to play for the Calgary Flames.
Yep.
And nobody ever wanted to leave. and when I went to New York, I tried to instill that in New York. And when I went to Anaheim, I definitely instilled that in Anaheim, and I feel really good about that. We lost. Well, it's funny because Scotty and Robbie Niedermeyer are 18 miles away from here.
Right.
I mean, their hometown. So is my wife, Jane. Anyway, so Scotty's playing for New Jersey Devils in 2003, and Robbie's with us in Anaheim, and Mrs. Niedermeyer's at the game, and she's not happy that Robbie has not yet won a cup, and Scotty's now won 3. But we flew back home after Game 7, back to Anaheim, and I had a good relationship with the team was owned by Disney at the time. We had a good relationship with Jay Rizzullo, who was my ultimate boss, who ran Disney International.
Right.
And so the next morning I get up. We got in at 5 o'clock. About 8 o'clock in the morning, I was back in the office. And I called him, and I said, you know what? I said, this can't end this way.
Right.
And I said, a lot of these people aren't going to be here next year. There's going to be changes on this team.
Right.
This has been an unbelievable team. We made a major mark on this franchise, and it needs to be celebrated. And he says, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I won't mention on air what the dollar amount was, but I says, this needs to be celebrated.
Right.
So they said, you know what? Love it. Good idea. And then the others say, you got to be there. And I want Michael Eisner to be there.
Excellent.
And so those kinds of things, I think, you gotta, whatever it is, I don't care whether it's in Kimberley or in Cranbrook, or it doesn't make any difference where it is. It starts at the top with a really good organization, and if you want to have a really good team, then you know where to start.
I know you had a lot to do with both those teams, and from what I understand, Scott maybe took a bit of a cut in pay to bring Rob over from New Jersey, but don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about to you is being the hockey man that you are, looking at the players that you've seen tonight and perhaps in the past few games for the Dynamiters. Who on the Dynamiter team stands out to you?
Well, there's a lot of players, and I told you this before we went on the air.
Yep.
I haven't been here.
Right.
So I watched one period, and I don't think it's, quite frankly, and I know the listeners are going to say, well, he doesn't know. That's why he's not saying.
No.
I don't think it's fair in one period or period and a half to look at a team and say, well, this guy is really good, this is really good, or there's something wrong here. Like, I thought, for example, the goaltending changed. I didn't like the third goal, and I don't know who's listening to this right now. I didn't like the mannerism of the guy that let up the goal.
Right.
So those are the things that I look for, because it's a team game, and the game has really changed.
It has.
Like,
yes.
it's totally changed. Like I started in 71, 72, Detroit Red Wings. The late Dan Maloney, 3 or 4 days ago,
Right.
was a great friend of mine, and went all through that whole area of Philadelphia Flyer, Broad Street Bullies. Terry Crisp is a good friend of mine,
Yep.
and et cetera, and to the Wars, Calgary, and Edmonton. The game is different. I'm not saying it's a better game or a worse game.
It's certainly faster.
It's a different game.
Yep.
So, yeah, to your point, it's a great point. So, what I saw here in a period in 5 minutes is the ability of smaller, skilled players to be able to make a difference in games. And like my own boy played in this league.
Right.
All I ever wanted for him was to have an opportunity to play the game and go on and potentially play college hockey.
Right.
That's why we chose the league together, and he did that. And so, not going anywhere else.
Right.
He's not playing higher than that. But you know, these kids, they have such an unbelievable opportunity, and it's not just about playing the game. I've been in Hockey Canada now 5 or 6 or 7 years now in a row. World Juniors, this, that, all the kind of stuff, that like running events for them, and I love it because I work with amazing young talented people.
Right.
But you know what? The greatest thing you can ever see about a player in this league is what's next.
Yes.
What's next? You know, as a billet in Kimberley, to have somebody stay at your house and get to know for a year or 2 years and go on to see them go on to university and potentially, you know, be somebody in life, and
Exactly.
in business and in life in general,
Yeah.
type of thing. And more importantly, remember where they came from is I think so rewarding. That's what I love about the league, and I love about what's happening in Kimberley.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us, Al Coates.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. We have to go back to work, so really appreciate you coming and talking to us.
I'm excited to watch this period.
Should be interesting.
Should be a good one.
Al Coates.